Hi guys. Well, I did say that I would give a talk at midday, and here I am, and we can just rely on my phone again, I'm afraid. So um, this is about a talk that I was going to give as a radio broadcast. However, we'll skate over that one. Forever Young. This is the title. I gave a series of talks I was asked to give to a women's radio station on the net. I decided after hearing one that they put out briefly to not do so anymore. The three I sent were condensed into one edited recording, and I liked the idea of looking at life through an older woman's perspective, which is what I was asked to do. And here in this original version, unedited, in my own words, is my take on life for women, as it was, is now, and with some hope for the future. It's especially presented for those of us who can personally remember things about World War II, like the Old King, the Young Queen, Winston Churchill and threepenny ice creams. But if you are a younger woman, you may still find something in it of relevance for you, interesting or even useful. Because as well as amazing and unimagined improvements to women's lives over the last 70 plus years, there are still many aspects of our life experience as women that are unchanged. Some that can never alter, and some that could and should but haven't. And those of us who've campaigned for the betterment of women's lives in all sorts of areas need younger women to take up those causes and carry on, both with us and after we have to stop due to whatever circumstances. Mind you, it's quite usual for youthful revolutionaries to become less enthusiastic campaigners for change as adult responsibilities creep up and deflect your energies. For instance, it's always girls and women that get into trouble, as we used to call getting pregnant, or knocked up as it was called where I came from in South London. And that circumstance can put your own needs and intellectual concerns on the back burner for however long. And whether or not it was a conventional choice to get married and then have kids or not. And even in this new world of contraceptive pills, potions and condoms that you can buy with a pint of milk or a bottle of plonk at the supermarket, that frequent enough eventuality for girls and women remaineth the same. It would have been good, though, to have had all those options back in the day, including the supermarket one, where there's even an anonymous check-out-yourself facility for buying such essentials. A girl or woman buying contraceptives, along with a £0.5 slab of butter and a quarter of tea at the Home and Colonial, would never have been an option. That was an old grocer's, by the way, like Sainsbury's. Even now, there are still life-changing moments when young women find out they are expecting, although the description expecting has fallen into disuse with the advent of legally terminating the condition that's more generally called pregnancy these days. And in the British Isles at least, in the old days before that solution became a possibility, most girls and women in that situation were classified as being members of the lower classes, and Marie Stopes, often revered founder of the old family planning clinic as us oldies knew them, offering the masses birth control and then lawful abortions, was a fan of eugenics. That's a fascist concept that only women perceived as intelligent, of the correct physical appearance and of the right class should be allowed to breed. Hence her programme of helping the girls and women who belong to the proletariat to cease procreating. It was during the battle to establish access to contraception and to legal terminations, when so many girls were killing themselves by getting botched backstreet abortions or stabbing themselves with knitting needles and throwing themselves down flights of stairs or drinking bottles of gin in hot baths, that threw up this snippet of information. But it was soon hidden, and let's face it, the pro-family planning lobby didn't want that to become common knowledge. The upshot of all this, of course, is that of the women who grew up in that pre-60s, 70s era made up those statistics of illegitimate teenage pregnancies, most of which ended either in the marriage of the mum-to-be to any boy or man, culpable father or not, or adoption of the baby, often in a way that caused horrific psychological trauma in both scenarios, albeit for different reasons, and you only have to watch a long-lost family programme to see the tip of an iceberg of women suffering from back then. Although my grandparents are Victorians, born when Queen Victoria was on the throne, they told me they were delighted to have lived through the changes they experienced through their long lives. And in 1985, when there was a huge piece about me in the Yorkshire Post Summer Women's Sports issue, the journalist mentioned my youthful pregnancy and shotgun marriage. My grandmother said she did not like those events being mentioned publicly. I wouldn't have to be a gambler to wager that there are many hundreds and thousands of women and girls looking in and listening to this that have either had similar experiences to me or know someone who has had. But what I would say to you is that if you are listening to me now, you, like me, have survived thus far, no matter what. And I found out, as all us older women have done, that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And never mind the benefits or not, according to your opinion, of sex education. Nobody told me about the menopause. Not just that women have periods or menses, to give it its posh name, during which time you can bear offspring, and that they then stop, giving rise to hot flashes. This basic information is in the public domain, and you'd be forgiven for thinking this all there was. But those of us who've gone through it and come out the other end, the reality for most of us is a lot more complex and uncomfortable than that. I put this hiding away of women's biological experience to a still operating system that promotes a sterile picture of female sexuality, the female body and its physiognomy and its functions. In a way, I suppose, the issue of female body hair is also associated with this. In the early women's lib movement, circa 1972-ish, hairy legs and armpits were a badge of honour among its ardent supporters, of which I was one, I happily confess. And the idea of waxing off pubic hair would have been deemed a crime against our newly proclaimed sisterhood of all women. And now, millions of pounds worth of depilatory products later, the term Brazilian, referring to this waxing of pubes, caused a friend of similar years to me some embarrassment, and a good laugh to others of our friends who are au fait with this modern expression and its meaning. On her Facebook page, she posted she was going for a Brazilian. After many comments, someone explained it to her, and she qualified it with meal, to more laughing emoticons. I'll give you a tip here. It's certainly not a good idea for older and thinner skin, especially down there. For about 2/3 of the last century, even if you asked your mother about it, the change that is, you probably wouldn't get much of an answer, if at all, and that's if you got up the nerve to ask. I asked my grandmother in desperation, and after a pause she told me she'd gone to my uncle's grocery shop when she was about 50 and fainted in there. When she came to, she had a glass of water and returned home, and that was that, and I quote. So I think we still need to open up that subject in full, complete with sweats, incontinence, migraines, headaches, dizzy spells, thinning hair, and how to deal with myriad possible effects, and how to ameliorate the symptoms. And with the support of all of us who have managed to overcome all or even one of those unpleasantnesses, for the women who are now, or who will be going through the change of life, as we call it. But we are so much more than our hormones or our outer body appearance. Mind you, we were taught that our appearance being well turned out and properly attired was a sign of respect for others. How that manifested in the mid-50s was, as Eddie Cochran wrote and played and sang, something else. My mother refused to walk down the road with me once when I turned up to go to lunch with her at her work in Chancery Lane. I was wearing black jeans, black jumper, black jacket, and had my hair cut in a Marlon Brando. I thought I looked very nice. Everything's open to interpretation, isn't it? Do you remember the Beat generation, bohemians and then beatniks, forerunners, I suppose, of the hippies? By the time punks were on the rise, fashion and music-wise, we were already very grown up. Ancient by their standards, and don't let's forget the Teds, New Edwardians and the New Elizabethans, their posher counterparts from 1952 onward. Older than me, and you'd have swanned around a dance floor or living room to music programmes on the wireless. For younger listeners, these were radios with valves inside that used to have to warm up and were tuned by turning a knob that whistled as you moved a hand through the dial from station to station, and there weren't many of them either. Henry Hall, Victor Sylvester and the rest, all strict tempo maestros, waiting in 3/4 time, foxtrot in or tango in, and crooners like Frank Sinatra or Bing Crosby and Anne Shelton, Vera Lynn, sang about love and heartbreak. So what's new? At the end of the war, there was another kind of lull in proceedings until 1954, and rock and roll in the person of Bill Haley and Elvis Presley broke the calm. There we were, jiving with the door handles of our bedrooms, or at youth clubs and friends' parties to 78 RPM fragile discs of material. When I played Lonnie Donegan's Rock Island Line at about 10 o'clock one night, my granddad shouted down the stairs, "Turn that racket off!" Some of us have to sleep and get up for work tomorrow. That's another thing that lots of kinds of young people experience during and after the war, living for quite long periods with grandparents. Granny reared is what they called it. I bet there's some recognition going on with lots of women listening right now, but having all these memories doesn't mean we can't be making more to remember in our future, just because we can remember so much from those many years that we've all been here. Remember, we still have a future and can live useful lives right now. There. It's been great talking to you, with you. So until the next time, and I'll put another one of those talks on. I'll say TTFN, which is what we used to say. TTFN and Toodle Pip. These were the in things to say. So I'll say cheerio for now. Bye for now. Bye.